Good day, everyone. This is EA Lego Academy, and my name is Eliazar. So, now this is the Python tutorial series. Right. So now this series is organized into three parts, basically. So the first part is that we're going to get familiar with the language, the Python programming language, and then the next part is that we are going to see how we can use our newly acquired skills in order to create desktop applications, specifically graphical user interfaces. And then, now, one of the projects we are going to work on is creating a banking system. Now, for that, we would need knowledge of a database management system, an RDBMS. So I'm going to use PostgreSQL, which I already taught in my previous tutorials. But don't worry, I'm going to walk over it again. It's going to be like a fresh tutorial, and I would show you how you can be able to link it with Python. So without further ado, we're going to start. So now this first series, this first tutorial is going to comprise of the installation of the Python programming language, specifically the Python interpreter, and then we're going to see how we can install an integrated development environment where we are going to write our code in. All right, so before I start anything, I would want to explain what Python is, what the Python programming language is all about. All right, so Python is a multi-paradigm programming language. So what that simply means is that Python is a programming language that is both object-oriented and procedural. Now, I would start with the definition of a procedural programming language. All right, so when we say a programming language is procedural, it simply means that we write our code using functions, and this code is written in series of steps. So we write code we write code in series of steps using functions. Basically, that's what procedural means. So series of steps, you are taking steps to execute code. But in order to take those steps to execute your code, you're going to write those code in functions. So functions, basically, in a layman's terms, they are just containers that we use to hold multiple lines of code written together in order to execute a program. So you can write your code and hold them together in containers, which are functions. Now, the process of writing these functions in steps, the process of writing these your functions in steps is what we refer to as procedures. So that's why we say Python is a procedural programming language. So that's what it means. Now, when we say that Python is an object-oriented programming language, it simply means that we use a class to represent real-life scenarios. So it simply means that real-life things, such as real-life objects, real-life things that we can be able, or things that we do in real life, we can model them using classes. And these classes can have objects as their representation. So let's take, for instance, a car. Maybe you want to build a car, or a car company, so to say. Now, we have, like, let's take the Benz company as an example. So we know that we have Benz as a car model or a car brand. Now, you can't just say you're driving Benz. You will need a representation of the Benz, such as C-Class, V-Boots, you understand, Maybach. You will need a specific model of that Benz company. You understand? Like, you need a model from the Benz company. So now we can see a class as the Benz car model itself, like the Benz model, the company. We can see a class as the Benz company. Now the object, the representation of that Benz company could now be seen as V-Boot, C class, and whichever model you want to create. So basically, classes, we can use a class to represent real life situations, just like a car. And when you create a car model from that class, we can see it as a representation of that car model. Does it make sense? So the Benz company can be seen as the class. Then when you create a car, like when you create a model from the Benz company, such as C class, that Benz model can be seen as the object, the representation of that class. So in layman's terms, that's just what it means. But looking at it in a more professional setting, or looking at it in much more intricately, we can say that a programming language that satisfies three basic properties such as polymorphism, encapsulation, and inheritance, we can say that that programming language is object oriented. So I'll break it down. Now, when we say encapsulation, it means that specific portions of our code. So let's take for instance a class. Now, if that class has functions that we use to hold code, we can say that specific portions of our code written in different functions can't be seen by another function. So the ability to hide a portion of your code from the rest of your program, we can term that concept encapsulation. That's what we mean by encapsulation. Then when we say polymorphism, so polymorphism simply means that you can have a program, one program that can be written in multiple forms. It can exist in more than one forms. That's what polymorphism means. And when we say inheritance, so inheritance simply means that you create a class that has access to the code inside another class. So all these are all ways we can explain. When you hear the term an object-oriented programming language, this is what they mean. A programming language that satisfies these three basic properties. All right, so that's just what it means. So as we write code and as you see in my other tutorials, these terms would get clearer to you and you'll be able to understand it properly. All right, so without further ado, I want to start by installing the Python interpreter. So the Python interpreter is that object, is that thing that allows us to be able to convert our code that we are going to write into machine language. Every computer, every system reads in binaries, zeros and ones. You will need something to be able to break down that your code into machine language so that you can be able to see a result. And that is done by nothing more than the Python interpreter, which we're about to install. Now, your code can be written in two ways. I'm going to explain that before we start. Now, if you are using a text editor such as your Notepad, VS Code, Sublime Text, whichever text editor you might choose to write, you can execute that code by using your command line interface or your PowerShell. I'm going to be showing you all this in great detail, so don't worry about it. Now, the other way you can also run your code is by using an integrated development environment, which is an IDE. So now, to make this course very simple, throughout this entire tutorial series for the Python programming language, I'm going to be using PyCharm, which is an integrated development environment that allows us to write Python code. So throughout, I'm going to be using PyCharm. But for the first few codes we would write, I would show you how to use a text editor and how you can use your PowerShell to run that your code for the curious minded. All right, so let's get started. Let's install our Python interpreter and let us also install our integrated development environment. All right, so now the first thing we're going to do is to head over to Python's website, say python.org, and to take us here. So now the Python version I'm using is Python 3.9.0. So I hope my explanation was detailed, was succinct. If it wasn't, well, don't worry. When we write code, you would understand it better. So I'll download that. Now scroll down to Python 3.9.0. So I'm using this because this is a very safe version. There are other versions that you can feel free to install. This is not the latest version. We have the latest version, and but I think it has a few bugs, so I'm not going to bother myself. I've been using Python 3.9.0 for quite a while now, for quite some while, and it just works for me. You can feel free to download a more recent version. So you click on the executable exe installer and then it will download it for you. So I already have it installed already, but let me just show you how you do that. So it installs, wait for it to install. So this is going to be an installation tutorial, and we'll just start by writing a few lines of code using our text editor and our PowerShell. All right, so once it is done installing, you head over to your file explorer and then you go to your downloads folder and then you see the interpreter that you just installed. So I have it installed already on my system, so there would be no need for me to do that again, but I will just show you in case you are installing it for the first time. You double click on the Python executable installer, and then it shows you. So you can see install now. You can click on install now, add to part. Now this add to part simply means that you want it to be able to be seen by your PowerShell. So now I already have it installed on my system. So now, but if you don't have it installed, you click on this add to part so that you can be able to see it on your PowerShell, and you click on install now. So I'm not going to waste my time doing that. Now, but it's not the 32-bit you install actually. That was my mistake. It is not the 32-bit. The version you are going to install is the one for 64 bits. So this is going to be the version you are going to install. This right here. So I already have it installed on my system. So I'll click on that again to install that proper version. Then we would wait for it to install also as well, so that I can show you a few things on how to get started. All right, so we're going to wait while it's installing. Give it time. All right, so now that it's done, you head over back to your download folder. You double click. You double click. This is one. You double click. Now you see you will get okay, not this one. So I'll check for the 64-bit installer. So now it might not show me exactly what you see because I already have it already on my system. So it's telling me to modify. But you don't have Python on your system. This is what you click on. You click on this. This is what it will show you when you click on the 64 bits. Now because I'm not using 32-bit on my system, so this is what it will show me, a fresh installation. If you are trying to install it freshly on your local machine, like I said, local machine means your system, your operating system. So if you are trying to install it on your local machine, this is what you would get. Install now, and then it will tell you add to part. Now you need to click on add to part so that you can be able to run Python code on your PowerShell or command line interface. I would explain what that is, so you don't have to worry yourself. So this is what you would get when you click on the 64, not this one. This is 32-bit. So when you click on 64-bit, that is what you should get. So I already have it on my system. That's why it is telling me install now. Sorry, install now. Now, in order for you to be able to run your code, that is type code on your notepad and run it on your PowerShell, we need to do something. Now, I'm assuming that you have already installed Python on your system and you clicked add to part. So make sure you clicked that add to part that I showed you. I would repeat it again. Now, I'm assuming that it is 64 bits you are using, not 32 bits. 64 bits. I already have it on my system. That's the reason why when I click on 64 bits to install, it tells me modify, not install. But I'm using this criteria, the 32 bits, because I don't have it on my system, and that is what it will show you if you click on 64 if you don't have it on your system. So this is what you would get. This is what you will get when you click on the 64 bits. Install now. Make sure you click on add to part. After you are done with that, let's proceed. So you click on install, you wait for it to install, and then once it is finished, you click on close. All right, let me just do it for the sake of this video. So click on add to part, click on install now, then you wait for it. Wait for it to install. Wait for it. So I'm assuming that you are installing 64, not 32. I'm only using 32 to show you what you will get as you are trying to install. Please, let's not make any mistakes. We're almost there. We can smell the finish line. Congratulations. All right, so I'm assuming that it was 64 you installed. Now that we're done with that, before we go back and install PyCharm, I want to show you, for those who are curious, how you can use a text editor. You can use a text editor and your PowerShell or command line interface to run your code. Now, let me explain something. The reason why we clicked on Autopart when we were installing Python was because so that we can be able to use our command line interface to run our code. Now, your command line interface is an environment that we use to be able to access applications installed on our local machine. That's basically what it does. So I'll be walking you through before we proceed. So you close this, minimize. We're coming back here to the browser. Now let's just right click on your system. Now I'm assuming that you're using Windows 11 or Windows 10, whichever one you are using, just follow along. So click on new and you come down here to text document. So I'll give it a name of first, just first. And you change it to PY. Now you will not see extension visible. The extension will not be visible for you. Now listen carefully. In order to make your extension visible for both Windows 10 and Windows 11 users, you click on your file explorer and then it opens up and you come here to view. Now, since I'm using Windows 11, you will not see view here. Your view will be somewhere here at the top here if you are using Windows 10. If you are using Windows 10, you would see view here. When you click on view, you would see another pane. You would see a pane that shows you an option. But here I'm having show. So you click on file name extensions in order to change the extension. Now you will see it at the top of your screen somewhere here, this show, and you will see a box that says file name extensions for those using Windows 10. Now you want to click on that box in order to tick it, the file name extensions. So I've already ticked mine. That's the reason why I can see my extension and modify it. All right, so when you are done, you close your file explorer. Now you want to open up that file that you've created. So I'll open up mine and I'm going to use Notepad to open it. We've not started yet. Notepad, and I'll say, now I want to just write a simple code that says print hello world. To print, let me increase the screen so that you can see what we're doing. I'll increase it. So it's print hello world. Don't worry, I will explain all this. Just follow along and type in print hello world. Now this is a simple Python code that allows me to print out this to my command line interface. Now you come to your search bar here, you type cmd, it shows you your command prompt, click enter. Now your command prompt is an environment, like I said, that allows you to access applications installed on your local machine, your system. So now I've already written this hello world. I can minimize it. I want to now navigate to the location of that file on my local machine. How do I mean? I want to navigate to this file, call my Python interpreter to run the code written in that file. Now, for those of us who have installed Python, if you followed my instructions, after clicking Autopart, once you've opened up this your command line interface, you type Python just to confirm that Python is there, -- version. Now it should show you the Python version. It should show you the Python version. So mine is 3.9.0. Mine is 3.9.0. All right. So what am I going to do next? So I want to open this. I want to run the code written in this file. That's what I want to do. So in order for me to do that, now this file is on my desktop folder. This is your entire Windows screen is your desktop folder. So you say cd. cd means change directory. This is a command line interface syntax. It has nothing to do with Python. That's why I said we're using PyCharm. But I'm only doing this for those who are curious, who want to be able to use their command line interface to run their code. So you say cd desktop. Now, since I'm in my desktop, I'm trying to run this Python file from here. So I'll just say Python, you call the interpreter, give a space, the name of the file, first.py, enter. Now you see I get hello world printed out. So you can check your file again and you see that that was what we wrote, hello world. I can even change it to greetings, save it, just to show you that it's running it from here. So your save is Control S. So greetings, save it, then you come here. Now, since I've already typed the command before, I've already typed it, there's no need to type it again. I'll just press the up arrow and enter, and you see I get greetings. So that is how you run your code using your PowerShell or command line interface. I've been saying PowerShell since and command line interface. PowerShell 2 is just like your command line interface. Yeah, but it's steroids. So you just say PowerShell, then you see that you have the same environment that we just had. So you say cd desktop python first.py, and you see we get the same thing, greetings. So I prefer to use PowerShell anyway, because if I close it and I open it up again, I can always see what I typed before. I always get back the previous thing I typed. Yeah, you see, if I press up, it shows me the last command. If I press up again, I get the last command, like that. So that's why I prefer using PowerShell. All right, now let's head over to installing PyCharm on our system. So all these things I'm installing for you, I already have them, but I'm trying to walk you through so that we can be on the same page to follow this tutorial. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to type PyCharm on my local machine. PyCharm community. Download this, follow me along to download this. Now you scroll down and you see, so the first link is what you want to click on actually. You click on the first link and it shows you, and you just click on download and it takes you to a page. Now you can see that when it takes you to that page, you see professional. We don't want this. This one is a paid version. You have to pay in order to use this. So you scroll down and you see the community edition. So you click on download and you wait for it and it will download it for you. All right, so it's downloading it for us. And now you can wait. And once it finishes installing, I can't wait because I don't want to make this video longer than usual. So once it is done downloading your PyCharm community, this is what we are going to be using for the tutorial. Once it is done, you follow the prompt, just click next, next, next. Do not change any settings. Now there will be a window to show you whereby it shows you different multiple boxes for you to tick. You make sure you tick on every of those boxes. Every box, you tick on everything. Do not leave any box unchecked. Tick every box. All right, so that is how you can get started with Python, installing it, running your code using command line interface, and installing your PyCharm. So PyCharm is an integrated development environment. So till I see you again on the next tutorial, have a very great day.